Hey guys, welcome back to the pod. Last night, Deandre Ayton had 26 points and 19 rebounds en route to a 20-point loss to the Charlotte Bobcats. Colton, you think he's a bit of a bright spot and he's coming on? Riley, I think you think the opposite. Let's hear your guys' takes and I'll make up my mind as it goes on.
I just want to say right off the bat, no matter what we are going to say in this episode, I respect your guys' opinions. And I think that a civil discussion
Oh,
between friends is
already hedging your
always,
bets here.
no, I'm not hedging my bets. I'm just saying we can have you know, a nice discussion where
I
we just
hate you.
talk
Shut
about
up.
the merits of players, right? So, DeAndre Ayton, we all agree that this team is bad. Okay. The team is not, whether it's coaching, players, injuries, combination of all three. The team has been bad, and that's kind of what we were expecting going into the season, where they were going to be at the bottom end of the draft, top of the draft order, anyways, right? Aiton has definitely had an up and down year, but right now, in the last month, he is in the middle of a massive upswing. Go through his numbers from the last games from the last month. He's had about two dud games, and the rest of the games have been awesome. You look at his stats, he hasn't shot under 50% from the floor except for one game, and that was against the best defensive team in the league. The game before that, against that same team, Minnesota Timberwolves, he had 22 and 16 against Cat and Gobert. Denver was the game. He had his other stinker in the last month. He put up 8 and 3 against Jokic, right? The very next game, he puts up 27 and 9 and 4 assists, right? So I'm just saying the guy has put up a string of great games. The lowest point total outside of those two like outlier games has been 18 points. And every single one of those games, except for one game, he shot over 50% from the floor and had a lot of rebounds. Go through his rebound numbers. He's had at least one assist, in every game, multiple 3 assist games, couple 2 assist games, 4 assist game. He's playing great ball and he's playing good on defense. The Blazers are noticeably way better when he's in the game on defense. I mean, that's part of it just being he's the biggest guy, but I'm telling you, athletically out on the switch is where Aiton excels as far as defensive centers go. When he gets switched out onto a guard, he does not get blown past like most centers do. I think that's a very valuable thing in the NBA. Not staking my claim as the solid center of the future. I'm saying Aiton has played a lot better this past month, and I think it's just because he's starting to gel with his teammates. His teammates are finding him in his spots, and he's getting the ball more. And that's what I was banging the drum on earlier in the season. Get him the ball, and he puts up numbers on good field goal percentage.
All right. Well, I agree in one respect, which is that we can have a nice civil conversation about
Oof,
this, and I can
oof,
respect your opinion.
oof.
But you're wrong, and here's why. First of all, the fact is that a starting NBA player, cannot have a great game in a game where his team loses by 25 or 30 points. I'm going to go ahead and say that that's not a great game. That is the a symptom of the fact that he's playing with non-NBA players on his team. There's times where he's out there with the bad Murray brother, Manea, Higgins, and Kamara. And
Who?
sure, in that case, in that situation, he's able to put up, 20 rebounds and 25 points. But that doesn't mean that he's having a great game. That just means that someone on the NBA team has to get them to at least 70 or 80 points because that's just how an NBA game works. And if everybody else has 0, 6, 0, 0, 0, 3, and 7, which is what happened last night against Charlotte, someone's got to put some points on the board at some point because no one's lost in the NBA, 120 to 30 anytime recently. And so, yeah, he's going to get some points. He's getting some rebounds, but he completely disappears when he's put up against starting caliber centers like Jokic. Jokic is an MVP. We don't even have to go that far. I mean, Anthony Davis, Yusuf Nurkic. They're all using him this year. And I do not think, not only I don't think he's the center of the future, I don't even think he's a serviceable center. We all have our opinions about Jason Quick here in Oregon. He's made some hot takes for 20 years now. But he did come out earlier this month and say something along the lines of, although the play has started to get better, quote, his first months in Portland were defined by tardiness and tantrums, according to team sources, and there has been an eerie resemblance to Hassan Whiteside, former Blazer center, whose statistics look nice but had little to no impact on the game, which I think kind of sums up nicely what I'm talking about here. He can go out there and get 20 points, 20 rebounds, and we need him to do that. Certainly, if he's going to be a center for the future, he needs to do that. But he needs to do it in competitive games against good centers, not just games that we're going to lose by 30 anyway. That's not a starter center of the future.
Yeah, I do wonder how much the statistical increases have had to do with gelling with his teammates versus there being virtually no other options on the team to take and make shots. Both of those two things kind of happened at the same time as the season's gone on, especially right now. There's so many Blazers out with injuries. Scoot and Shaden both out. Brogdon out. Simons can't hit the broadside of a barn. So I think really both factors are playing into his statistical increases. He might be he might be gelling with the system and they might be finding him in his spots a little bit more. And he also might be just the recipient of being the only like serviceable non-G League player on the floor right now. And I mean, to be honest with you, it couldn't have got much worse than how he started the season. He really had only up to go from there. He had a horrendous start to the season, and he's only really starting to regress back to the mean of his Phoenix numbers, where he left in disgrace and was traded by a team and a fan base that hated him towards the end. So I hope that he can continue if he can continue this consistency into next year when the guys start coming back, and hopefully when the Blazers start building some form of competitive basketball in their system, if he can keep putting up these kinds of numbers as opposed to his early season numbers, it would be huge, but I think it remains to be seen. I really have no idea which way it's going to go with him. He's inconsistent at best.
I think you guys bring up a great point, actually, for my favor, because yes, he is playing with guys like Higgins and the worst Murray brother and Tamani Kamara, who cannot spread the floor. And he's putting up efficient numbers. This isn't a guy shot chucking. He's not taking 30 shots for 20 points. Last night in the game against Charlotte, Simons 4 for 21 for 10 points, 0 assists. That's your starting point guard.
What were they for three at one point? Like
It was like
for
1 for 26 or something like that.
yeah,
So
and then they finished 3 for something or another. Continue.
nobody
3 for
is
31.
spreading the floor. Yeah, so nobody is spreading the floor for Ayton, right? Nobody is helping the guy out. Simons is not running the offense at all. He's either turning it over or shooting a brick 1-on-3. And Jeremy Grant isn't hitting anything. And those are both starting caliber NBA players that they're not, but my point is he's succeeding in spite of that. This isn't inefficient basketball. Look at the field goal percentage. I mean, what else is he supposed to do when the rest of his team is, G League or worse? Not even shouldn't be on a roster, right? So I mean, what more can you ask for him? He's succeeding with what his opportunities are in this circumstance, and he has been consistent over a month. I'd say 2 bad games out of your last 15 is good consistency in the NBA, especially when your team surrounding you sucks. So I can't hold it a 25 point or last night against Charlotte. I'm not going to hold a 13-point loss against Ayton when he's the only player on the floor playing positive ball. Literally the only player. Go down this sheet. He's the only guy that kept it even close to 13 points. Like, so I'm saying yes, everything you guys said is accurate, and I think it's actually saying that he's better than what he could be because his team around him has not been doing anything. I've got a funny stat for you guys. Without Malcolm Brogdon, can you guess how many games the Blazers have won? Without when Malcolm Brogdon has not played, how many
Like
games
two?
have the Blazers
Two?
won? No, zero. Zero games without Malcolm Brogdon.
That's
The
insane,
Blazers
man.
won. They're like 0-19.
Simons is not a point guard. Like he just
Yeah, I mean, we're not even gonna get. I
uh
don't even need to get into the Simons video right now because that's gonna be another one of those fun ones. But
that
I'm just
sucks.
saying, when Brogdon's out, when Scoot's out, when Higgins is playing, when Banton has been playing, which Banton hasn't been playing that bad. He's not been awful, right? He's been okay out there. But those are the guys getting him the ball, and he's shooting 70% from the field, 26 and 19. What?
You were you were saying this at the beginning of the season, very similar things about the players getting him the ball, and that was different players, hopefully starters of the future, guys like Scoot and Shaden and those sorts of players. So do you think that if when they come back, he's going to be able to continue putting up these numbers, or do you think they're going to decline once those guys come in and start gelling? I mean, that's what a lot of Riley's point was talking about is that he wasn't putting up these numbers when we had our starters in, and that he's only been putting them up when there's nobody else on the floor. And really, the question is like, sure, he can average, 20 and 10 when they're getting blown out every game, but can he do it on a competitive team? I mean, he did with Phoenix, but
Done it before.
it obviously didn't end up fantastic, didn't put them over the top. There was a
Two
lot of,
games away from a ring is very close when you're playing good
and then
ball.
collapsed like 2 or 3 seasons in a row, right? And they ended up
So
trading him and he left the town in disgrace. So
we have to admit, did Scoot start out the season good? No, he started out awful. And is Simons a pure passer? No. You go back earlier in the month when Scoot was playing
are those guys going to develop into guys
and
that are
Brogdon
going to be
was
able
playing.
to get eight in the ball and in his spots,
I think Scoot has great court vision. I think I've seen flashes of it all year long where he can run the floor, he can dime a guy. He finds Ayton in the pocket on the short roll. Awesome. I think they already have blossoming chemistry. I've seen it. But Scoot's getting dinged up, and that's also not good, which we talked about this before the pod. Scoot getting dinged up is worrisome. I think they might just be keeping him out of games he potentially could play anyways. But I think that Ayton can do this. He's done it before. He's doing it now. I mean,
What about you,
I
Riley?
would
Do you
much
think
rather have him have these games than a 45% shooting from the field like Nurkic would. Nurkic would be shooting, 7 for 21 out here. And
well,
what
let's not
would
compare
he
him to
win?
Nurkic. That isn't the standard we want to hold here
What?
as the
Really?
center of
Don't
the
compare him for
future.
the guy he was traded for? I don't know
No,
about
as the center of the future. Riley, what do you think? Do you
that.
think when those guys come back, I mean, you already kind of hinted at it, but maybe speak more to it. Do you think that when there's real point guards, guys that can get him the ball in his spots, is he going to be able to keep putting up, deep 20, deep teen rebound games, average, good triple doubles, or is those percentages going to kind of regress back to what it was at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm worried about because I think that it is very, I mean, we have to look for bright spots. I completely understand. And on this team, there are very few bright spots, very far between. And so a, 26 and 20 game basically or whatever from Aiton, it does look nice. It's like, oh wow, someone out there is playing NBA basketball. And I do like understand that that's what you have to focus on if you want to have any optimism about the future of this team. But what I really worry about is that when the other guys come back, the guys who can score, maybe someone else who can pick up a rebound every now and then, and he's not just playing with like kids, and he's not just trying to, I
G
mean,
leaguers?
yes, set Aiton down at any YMCA and he's probably going to score 50 and 30, but that doesn't mean he can do it in an NBA Finals series. So, I mean, there's also the fact that Like
Yeah, he did.
sometimes he's playing against teams who are already up by 20 and aren't playing defense as hard. He's playing against teams that, maybe have their second string guys in there because they know they can kill us anyway. It's just a very different thing. And the small sample size that we have of Ayton playing with pseudo NBA quality players like the Blazers had at the beginning of the season. They were, rookies and super young, but I mean, at least they had the talent to be in the NBA. He didn't look that good. He looked like he really took the back seat. He's not the kind of guy who likes to assert himself when he feels like someone else is asserting themselves. I mean, if Shaden's willing to take the shot, and if Shaden's willing to run in there into traffic and grab a rebound, Ayton tends to just kind of stand there and watch it happen. And I mean, someone has to do something on the team as it stands right now, and he's the one who's been doing it. Props to him, to make the most of this opportunity. I'm not saying he shouldn't. I'm not saying that he should just stand by and watch them get blown out 120-30, which is what would have happened last night if he hadn't played well. But at the same time, when this is an NBA team, I don't see this continuing.
You brought up a good point with keeping him involved. He definitely seems like the type of player, kind of reminds me of LaMarcus Aldridge, where you really have to like forcefully get him engaged and keep him engaged in a game. And in today's NBA, it's kind of rough to have a player like that that doesn't just go get buckets by himself, that isn't just like throw him out on the court and have him go get buckets that you constantly have to force your offense into. It kind of stalls everything else, stops the free flowing nature of the game and the offenses in today's NBA. As Kobe Bryant called it, accident basketball, where you just drive in and throw it out to an open guy. And that's where today's NBA is now. There's not really that system of like pounding it inside or like, the triangle offense or stuff, which in that system, Ayton probably would have thrived. He probably would have been great in that kind of more system-based offense. It'll be interesting to see when those guys start to come back and you do have Shaden taking, big numbers of shots and Scoot has the ball in his hands and you got shooters on the outside. Is Ayton just going to stand around and watch and not get engaged in the game, kind of like he was at the beginning of the season? And really what looked like happened in Phoenix towards the end once they got all those shooters and all those guys, all those bucket getters, he pretty much became a complete non-factor. So it's a little bit worrisome, just his style of play and kind of his mentality. Pretty much as soon as the season started and I saw that from him, I was a little bit concerned about it.
I don't know. I don't think that with the roster construction and with Chauncey Billups' system or lack thereof, I think there are systems in the NBA, and I think Chauncey Billups' system is not conducive to any kind of successful basketball from anyone on the floor. And since he's been the coach, we haven't seen any kind of fluent, successful basketball. So I am not going to take a specific player down the line and say, you know, you can't do this when the roster has been decimated by injuries. It's been a tough year for judging things, but I'm saying I'm liking what I'm seeing this past month from Ayton. I don't think he could be doing more with the players he's been out there with. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Is
I,
there
I
a
agree with what you guys are saying with, having to get him involved and things like that. But I'd argue for every single big in the league outside of Jokic, Giannis, and Giannis isn't even really a big. Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, those guys, you do have to throw the ball into your big guy to get him touches. That's
can
just
you
that's just how that works with bigs.
I can't really picture another like system in the NBA where they pound it down into a big guy like that and he like posts up and I'm legitimately trying to
It's
think of
not even like
an,
post up, like it's pick and roll. Like Aiton's game is in
who's
the
an
short roll.
example in the league that's like a guy like that that's really successful and that's on a team that's like winning, a team that you have to kind of
Bam.
force feed the ball like that.
You don't force him the ball. It's short roll. It's same game as Bam where he comes
He's
off the
more of
little
a
short
playmate.
screen,
He'll play up at the top of the key though, and he's got the shot and he's got the passing, which Aiton doesn't have yet.
but he
But
has this short roll. That's what I'm saying. He sets the screen up top, hit, goes for a mid range, and he hits it. That's Aiton. Aiton can do that all day. You can feed Aiton like that, and he can score like that efficiently.
it
As
would be
the
nice if he added the passing game that Bam has, because that's definitely the second thing, that makes him so effective is if uh another player comes up, he hits the cutter, he hits the open shooter. So that's
Which
something.
with more shooters come more assists and more passing and
Didn't
hitting
see a
shots.
lot of that in Phoenix though when he was surrounded
True.
by shooters. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see next year. Hopefully there's just more continuity with the roster, more talent, more spacing, more everything, and we can get a better idea of what these players are. Because this season it's a bit of a bummer in a lot of ways. It feels like a complete wash. Like we really haven't seen any progress from, very little progress from anybody. Shaden's been out huge swaths of the season. Scoot's not really finding any consistency or momentum. The only players that really look like they're difference makers are like the 30-year-old veterans. Like you said, Malcolm Brogdon has been in every single Blazers win. Jeremy Grant has had big numbers and wins and hit big shots, but really none of the young guys that we're hoping for the future will take up that role. I guess draft picks. That's what this season's all about, is trying to get a better draft pick.
We better get a good pick out of this, or this is a complete loss. And yeah, there's not a lot of bright spots. There's not a lot to look forward to, honestly, based on what we're seeing so far. So it's a tough year in the Pacific Northwest for basketball. And yeah, the fact that we're not even getting to see the young guys play and develop, like the whole idea, we could talk about this for a lot longer, I'm sure, but I'll just say this quickly. The fact, if it's true that Scoot could be playing and he's not playing because we like don't want him to get hurt or we don't want to like risk it or whatever. I mean, that is such a terrible idea with a kid his age. Like, what are we saving him for? He's not going to develop. He's not going to get the confidence or the reps. He needs to be, if he can play, he needs to be playing because he needs the minutes in order to be the point guard of the future. And like saving him at 19 years old or whatever, it's lunacy. It's a terrible decision.
We're the optimistic podcast, though, guys. We're all about optimism. Yay, right? That's just where we're at this year. Is there's very little to be optimistic about. Specifically this time of the year. Nothing fun happened at the trade deadline. All the exciting young players are out with injury. It's kind of a third year in a row of just, oh man, the end of the season's real tough to watch.
I'm optimistic. I've seen flashes from Scoot. Just stay on the floor, please.
All right, guys, what do you think about DeAndre Ayton? Do you think he's the center of the future? Do you like what you've seen from him this season or, specifically lately? Let us know in the comments down below. We will respond and we might even talk about you on a future podcast. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Stop
Bye.
hating on Ayton.